Good afternoon and welcome to everyone, in particular to our live attendees, but also to Philip Hicks and Jamie Allan from Allan Panthera and from Pravo Consulting, who work together on Campaign Catapult. We're delighted to have them with us and extremely pleased that they will be able to talk to us about how we can all go about improving our own drone companies and sensor companies. The official title of today's CPD session is Extending Your Coverage, How PR and Marketing Helps Drones and Sensor Businesses Take Off. And I think that's probably something that we all are aiming for. So I am going to introduce, first of all, Jamie. Jamie and Phil are both agency owners and business partners. They've been in the industry and worked together for a certain amount of time, considerable amount of time together already, and they are going to tell you more about themselves as well as the topic for today. So I shall hand over to both of you then now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm not able to share my screen, Elena. It says it's disabled. Perfect. There we go.
Okay. Right.
Does that look okay? Is that full screen for everyone?
Yep. Probably if you could expand it a bit more, I don't know.
No, that's as full screen as it goes. It's full screen on my screen, at least.
Okay, it's just showing the instructions at the top.
Yeah, I wonder if I can.
Doesn't matter. We'll go with it as is, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Elena was wanting to do her introduction to ARPAS, but I assume everyone knows ARPAS, and you can obviously read there the various activities and goals that they have as an organisation. So I guess we won't dwell on that too much, but we'll pass over to Phil to roll with it.
So if you come on to the PR slide, please. So could you, Jamie, move onto the PR slide?
It's not. My screen sharing says it's been paused. I'm not sure if that's how that's happened. Let me try a different way. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
So thank you very much. And here we go straight into the overview, which is this presentation will take you through the story from marketing and sales, a little bit about us to set the scene, put us into context, looking at strategy, talking about the relevancy of a program, how to create the plan, if time permits, just to touch on a few case studies to summarize and unpack what we've just discussed, and then a Q&A to follow. Just a bit about me, which will be slightly painless in terms of I'll keep it short. Essentially, I've been involved around 30 years in disruptive technologies, started off in journalism, then in-house with Rakel Electronics, which formed into Vodafone, and then other organizations, including big advertising marketing companies working in the Middle East, and also in more esoteric places like Moscow, then coming back into UK mainstream working in aerospace, defence, civilian technologies, working also more latterly with joint venture programs, unmanned VTOL through to fixed wing, some startup work, and also across a range of sectors from geotechnology through to navigation, touching on space satellite, SATCOMs through to search and rescue and C4ISR and C4I Star on defence. So a spread of commercial programs that I've worked on, and sometimes when things go wrong, we're there to help as well in terms of reputation management. So the whole PR stakeholder piece, engagement across a range of tactics and programs, from online through to traditional media and events. And over the past few years, I've collaborated with Jamie as a partner in Campaign Catapult, which is focused very much on drones, robotics and AI. So I'll pass over to Jamie to talk about himself.
Thank you. Yeah, I started off as a lawyer working in the oil and gas industry as an area manager for a FTSE 100 engineering company, doing business development and compliance. I then joined Cyberhawk as their business development manager in 2015, covering a variety of sectors, rail, utilities, renewables, land survey, inspection. And following my time there, I joined the marine business as the head of global UAV operations. So I was responsible for actually setting up a drone inspection capability within that organization. So we focused on the marine and the offshore renewable sectors. And so I kind of was dual rolled in terms of winning commercial work and bidding with the likes of Equinor, SSE and GE, winning some big tenders for inspection services, but also then having to project manage those services, and two of those were world first offshore projects. I then joined a European offshore logistics company as the chief sales officer on a contract, and following that set up my own consultancy in 2018. So the bulk of my work continues to be supporting drone businesses with their strategy, their growth, their commercialization of products and services, their sales and marketing strategy support, funding support, a whole range of things. Yeah, I've also then been helping various clients, again, various sectors, security, public safety, energy, and some highlights where working on the Network Rail BB-Loss project with a client, working with DGI on some expert sessions, and also speaking at various events globally. So I've got a kind of multi-sector experience. I like to get out and speak at events globally. And aside from the drone stuff, I'm a mentor to the ORE Catapult Launch Academy. I'm a mentor at Aberdeen University for postgraduate students, a guest lecturer in innovation at Edinburgh University Business School. And I worked with Interpol on their drone framework, as well as act as a consultant to ARUP, Deloitte and McKinsey on drone matters. So yeah, a very kind of broad and deep bag of experience and skills, but it's been a pleasure to work with Phil, combining forces to really help the industry on the PR marketing side. So enough of my voice, and I'm probably going to cough soon because I've got the cold, so I'll hand it back to Phil and let him start this one.
Thanks, Jamie. So here on this, and we'll throughout the presentation, we'll refer to research and other organisations that have also been involved with the market opportunities. And here we've got a piece by KPMG, which has been updated to very recently. And if you go from left to right, you've got the early part of the discovery of sector and model to supply to the market through to the more mature areas. And this is actually covering aviation as a an aerospace market, not just drones. But you can see the 3 red dots on the left showing unmanned, or should that be uncrewed, aircraft, and very in vogue right now, urban air mobility through to eVTOL. There's some interesting work that's already going on here, and certainly the States are also pioneering as well. Just in case there's anybody that's not on their Thanksgiving break from the States on the call. And maintenance drones includes from painting and inspection through to surveying and wind towers, and a whole load of prospects there that make the marketplace really quite exciting. Some of the figures that are coming through and being quoted are sometimes a disparity of figures, but 76,000 drones by 2030. A third of those will be in defence and public sector, so 2/3 will be the bulk of commercial. Big growth in agriculture and other sectors. The global market, according to Drone II, is that it's $30.6 billion today, with a growth at least of 8.3% through to 2030. Now, the other thing is, that's the good news from this image and picture here, is that in many respects, it's not only spearheading disruptive technologies going forward, but more importantly, recession proof to many respects, to showing how to provide health and safety and cost efficiencies for a range of industries, whether it's people working at height, agriculture, as I've referenced, through to security and defence. So that leads me on to the next 2 slides, which is, this is the environment, and it's not even touching all of it, but according to a nice dashboard here, where you've got manufacturers through to service providers, the media, other collaborators and influencers. You've got a fair, and sensor operators, you've got a fair grab of the market. Just in 2015 was relatively busy. Now you fast forward to now, and still that's not covering the whole picture. But what is interesting, I think, also is the fact that TrackX is actually looking at 225 drone startups in the UK this year, and who have gone for funding. And that covers, you know, Skyports at the higher end, 41 million, Flop, $22 million, Altitude Angel, 70 million. And then at the access scale, above surveying, $4 million. We've got these figures that we can actually share with people outside of this presentation, but it just shows you it's a marketplace that is burgeoning and has opportunity, but it's getting crowded, and people need to have proper share of voice, and that's part of our discussion here. So that takes us to the rationale for PR, and let me just point it in, the engine, the dynamo within the whole of the marketing setup. Marketing is the research, the back office, the understanding of the marketplace, and PR is the strategic and operational implementation of that voice and messaging to influencers and decision makers. And it's very much the key part of authority, and one of the things that methodologies that we employ that make sense of all this, which can be seen to be potentially complex, but to get clarity, is through a program of methodology called PESA, which we'll talk a bit later about. But essentially, the key 5 elements of the rationale, we would argue, is that you've very much got to get the audience, your prospects, your opportunities, the influencers, the decision makers, people that will actually fundamentally either become customers or influence them throughout the supply chain, whether they're integrators or service operators or government organizations, whoever they are. They need to be educated as to what you're doing and what the wider opportunities are, whether you're a startup through to a larger enterprise. we've got to make sure that the unique selling points of the business are aligned to the business goals. We very much believe that you can't just divorce a bit of PR, a bit of social, a bit of this, a bit of that from the actual business plan. It's got to be absolutely integrated with sales, marketing, business objectives and strategy, and PR. They are self-perpetuating and supporting each other. It also helps you promote collaborations. We talked about whether it's integrators or whether it's trade associations or others that are going to be influential for you. And perhaps also cooperation, which is a phrase that's often used where in some places you might be competitors, but in other places you might actually collaborate and work on bids. Again, that might be something to do with tenders that are coming out from government or larger organizations. We can help, and very much PR supports this position of thought leadership. Even if you're in a niche or a startup area, you need to have your voice heard. And that leads into the potential of fundraising and securing an investment, whether you are a startup or whether you are a more mature SME through to a larger organization. PR allows you to be understood, to be given an ear, to actually exist. You know, that you actually have a product and a sector and a service that you're involved with. You have focus. I remember just talking to an organization that was a very new out of university spin-off, and they had such a wide portfolio, they didn't have focus. But in the conversations, we were able to actually explain to them the rationale for PR at their early stage. But of course, all of this is scalable. You don't have to pick everything off the menu, and certainly that's how we reflect our services and our advice in terms of supporting each case by case of a business.
So in terms of the sales and marketing strategy, which is a phrase that you'll have heard no doubt, you know, as you're working in your business, the diagram that I've chosen to put in, kind of like the Holy Trinity, as it were, it's something which is critical to bear in mind, is the separation of sales and marketing, because they're very distinct and unique activities and skill sets, but they are required to be intrinsically linked to enable and to enhance and help each other. But the other third part of that is the product or the solution, the service, whichever offering you're providing. But ultimately, having those three in synchronization and synergy is what will enable the growth of your business. So just bear in mind when you're doing your business plan or you're coming up with your sales and marketing strategy that you've got to have kind of sight that they're separate, but also how they talk to each other. But some strategic pointers which we'd like to highlight in terms of the kind of the high level thinking for your strategy is, and we don't say this to try and teach you to suck eggs or be obvious, but it's because we've seen it before, is that, you know, if you're not already, you know, providing a service or a product into the market, if you're somebody who's at a stage of, you know, doing R&D, who's thinking of launching a business in the drone sector, is to really do your research and find out from customers, potential end users, peers, you know, what actually is it that they're looking for, what is the gap. So if you're not a first mover and you're a fast follower, you might, you know, want to think about how you differentiate yourself from your competitors. You know, what is the actual value you're providing over somebody else, but ultimately don't launch something, spend time and money, you know, providing something or trying to provide something where it's not actually viable and it's not what the market needs. The second pointer is to create a value proposition. This is something that's overlooked by quite a lot of businesses, but actually is a very powerful way of distilling and crystallizing what your offering is, what the value is, and then how that is you know, conveyed to your market. So a value proposition ultimately can be a couple of sentences, it might be a short paragraph, but it's a way of, as I say, kind of capturing what it is you do and the benefits. So Uber is the smartest way to get around. That's their value proposition. So you can see how that kind of works very neatly and nicely. But the value proposition again is separate but linked to your mission, your vision, your goals of the organization. But as I say, that kind of little elevator pitch helps you and the rest of your workforce be very clear on the offering, and that sort of DNA that runs through the business will translate into your marketing activities and how you speak to your market. So very important to have your value proposition defined. And then the third sort of strategic pointer we like to highlight is synonymity. So becoming synonymous with your product, your solution, your market, whichever niche it is. That sort of kind of almost like lexicon, the terminology where your solution, your business name is just the equivalent of what it is you're doing. So a couple of examples there would be to Google something is to search something online, but they're synonymous with search. Or you might have, I'm going to do the hoovering, which is vacuum cleaning, because Hoover as a brand, absolutely monopolized that market. Now, Dyson obviously have come along as a disruptor, but the kind of lexicon is still to go and Hoover, not to go and Dyson. So again, the power of if you're able to become synonymous within your chosen field can have a very long lasting impact on your business. Another kind of high level theme to think about in strategy is staying relevant and kind of having that finger on the pulse all the time, which can be hard to do, but again is worth the attention and the effort. And the first element of that is being adaptable and agile. So being flexible, reactive, proactive, being open to change, open to feedback, not being too fixed and stubborn in your marketing and PR and the way your business is operating. You've got to really look at the PESTLE model, your political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental elements in terms of adapting and adjusting your marketing, PR, as well as your business operations over time. Maintaining the shop window. So again, that's something we've seen very recently with a client where they are the kind of pioneer, the leader in their field with their technology. However, the website is very dated. It's not on trend with the latest styles of website. It's not optimized for a customer journey. It's not functional in terms of usability, SEO. It's really quite poor, and the result of that is a negative impression of the business. So that's very something to be conscious of with your website, your social media platform, your branding, making sure that it stays fresh over time. And the easiest example of that is in the car industry, where you see car logos sort of changing every few years or more, because they realize that they've got to kind of keep up with how things are in the kind of social environment. Thought leadership, Phil touched upon earlier, but that's something else where we think is critical these days. Over time, people have started to move away from a faceless corporate organization in terms of connecting with their what they want to purchase from and what they want to use from. So by making sure that you're using yourself, your other personnel, your senior executives to become thought leaders, and by that we mean putting out white papers, blog posts, being visible as a person and having that connection on a human level, speaking at events, all of that thought leadership turns into the credibility and the validation that you're a kind of genuine, authentic business who wants to connect with their customers. So definitely, if you're able to and if you're willing to be a thought leader in your sector, then that's something we highly recommend. Not paying unnecessarily is something which we think is quite important, and we'll touch upon that later in the presentation. But ultimately, you can achieve a lot of messaging a lot of impact and effectiveness through your marketing and PR activities, not just by paying for advertising, paying for sponsorship, paying for inclusion in a trade journal. There are very low cost to no cost ways of getting out there, getting the brand out there, the news stories, anything that you want to share can be done free to low cost. So that's something that we encourage, because the ROI is much better than the paid for options. And then finally, the Peso model, I think which Phil will go into, but that's sort of a joined up marketing approach, and you'll see the elements in the next slide. That's again critical to make sure that you've got that consciousness of how does this activity feed into and fit with the others, because they're all part of a big web. But I'll bring up the model for Phil to run through, because it's very interesting to see.
Thank you. I mean, it's very easy to try and blind with science, but this codification, or this methodology, which is PESO, which stands for paid, earned, shared, owned media. And we'll pick out a few items that I think are important, but essentially this allows us to neatly codify how these different elements, these somewhat disparate elements, all come together. And at the center, what we have is the reputation and the credibility, the trust, the authority. Authority comes through third-party endorsement, through editorial and PR. Authority comes through search engine optimization and in its various forms. It comes through, in certain cases, paid media, but we would argue that there's much more validity in looking at low, no-cost options, and that essentially comes into owned and shared and earned media. Earned media being very important in terms of the influence through media relations. We would argue that paid really is exchanging money for distribution. Let's be quite honest about it, whether it's ad or content. That earned is trading valuable understanding and content for an authority's audience. Shared is, as implied, amplifying the content, and owned is aggregating an audience, and that could include, seeking out those wanting to seek you out, and so therefore that's where search engine comes into. The idea that this operates on its own is a misnomer. We definitely put this methodology central to our PR operation, and how, and I've established this with other organizations as well, and it's becoming a more popular methodology for grown-up PR businesses, whether they operate in the consumer market or the B2B or the government market. It allows you to essentially select and prioritize a number of programs, and this hopefully we can each talk through and unpack a bit more as the presentation goes on, and also probably point to in some of the case studies. So marketing program objectives. This is really setting up the creation of the strategic framework and how the program goes forward. I suppose that we would argue that the market awareness is so very important, and you need to look at pitching, need to look at how these things work in terms of pricing, and being very aware of the competition, not just the competition now, but trying to look at trends and future competition that's coming up. It's something that I'll point to later on in terms of how you can leverage opportunities. You might have a window of technology advancement that you have on competition, but you know that you're going to get caught up. And as Jamie said, there will be disruptors at every stage of the market, and how you can actually protect your name and try and get this synonymity, which is not always easy, and can be very elusive. but it comes at a price in terms of the need for marketing programs that are aligned with the business. One of the big takeaways from this discussion is that we do think that you can't just operate in silos: PR, marketing, sales, business development, business direction, product development, pricing, sales pipeline. All of this has to be seen to be part of the business structure, because without all of that apparatus, the business does not go forward. And likewise, you would need that also to explain to funders and investors. So essentially, we're looking at the opportunities to prioritize those markets and those opportunities for methodologies, Google, pay-per-click, SEO, just some of the elements we've discussed in the PESO model. Successful content marketing really does support the actual development of the business through sales and prospects and conversion. We'd argue that the plethora of mailing lists, whether it's in a grown-up CRM such as Salesforce, or a more sort of homespun spreadsheet-based program, these all have to be integrated so you get an idea of what's going on. And also, likewise, and we've talked about it in the second to last bullet, how social media can also help you, and prioritizing through LinkedIn and making sense of those contacts as potential prospects or influencers and decision makers. So contact management is important. And then finally, marketing through in-person and virtual events. Again, I think we'll talk about that a bit later, but essentially COVID kind of threw away going to live events and hopping on planes to go everywhere. But that has returned, but it does mean that having virtual event access, whether it's speaking, webinars such as this, or other opportunities such as virtual exhibitions, does allow you to amplify and get around, especially if you're a small team, 1, 2, 3 persons. It can allow you to cover the ground more effectively, but it doesn't stop you going to events. And we will talk a bit about how to make sure that that sort of event process and presence can be made more effective and very cost effective as well, with no need to spend on booths necessarily. So those are the kind of key objectives that we would have in mind in looking at a typical development of a program, which would be bespoke per client anyway.
So in terms of creating your marketing plan, or if you're at a stage of looking to refresh what you're doing, the first step really, again, it's kind of obvious, is defining your goals. You need to have those areas of focus and what you aspire to achieve to help structure the rest of the activities that you'll be needing to do. But the next step then is measuring the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats against the prior year. So again, it's important to reflect on what has gone before. What did you do well? What didn't go well? Any feedback from customers? And that helps to form a direction and a strategy for the year ahead. The next stage will be defining your core messages and value propositions. So as I touched upon earlier, you want to make sure that your value proposition is linking in with your mission and vision and goals as part of the overall kind of business plan and strategy for the organization. And then more of a deep dive into your competition and any target markets will be driven by the research. So, is what you're offering still what the market needs? What was the stage of the competition? Just getting a bit more visibility on an awareness of where you're playing is critical to then drive the marketing activities. Because therefore then your inbound and content marketing strategy, the next step there will be kind of again following from that. And then of course creating a PR plan, events calendar. As Phil mentioned, it's good to have any events that you want to go to, whether it's exhibiting or attending or speaking at, but having that calendar, that structure for the year ahead, and then building campaigns, your marketing and PR around that for those events, but also then the other gaps in the rest of the calendar where you might want to have, product launches or new hires that are announced. But basically, again, it gives you that structure and clarity that then makes it easier to do your marketing activities around. And then the next stage would be creating the content and marketing materials. So again, having the kind of the refreshed look at things, is what we're giving out in our marketing collateral, whether it's paper, brochures, business cards, PDF, material, the social media platforms, the imagery, all of that sort of stuff. That needs to be, again, refreshed or created if you don't have it. And that's got to be, the third stage of PESO, basically, as we highlight at the bottom there. But then you've got to finalize the budget based on everything that has preceded that. So, don't, assess everything and then go and do everything if it's unaffordable. It will put you under pressure. Make sure it's viable, and make sure you're allocating resource into the areas that have the most impact, because too often we've seen kind of taking a punt or a risk at events or marketing options that don't provide the ROI. But likewise, a lot of businesses don't dedicate enough resource to marketing and PR as an effective way of generating business. So make sure that if you justify everything you're able to do, that should make it easier to then get the right budget that you require. And then you'll launch everything, but again, consider how you want to launch your marketing and PR. So do you want something to go viral in terms of a video or a kind of an event that you're doing? Or do you want to kind of do a soft launch in a particular geography or a particular market? But the main thing is to be quite strategic with how you launch, because you don't want to go out there, have a lot of time and effort and money wasted by nothing resonating within the market. So make sure that that's given the due consideration. And then measuring and adjusting. So again, you're assessing what the KPIs were, what were the outcomes that you're looking for from your activities, and making sure that, again, you're adapting, you're flexible, and that you're kind of assessing the KPIs going forward. So again, out of that comes the next set of goals, and therefore we go around the kind of the circuit again. But one of the kind of, again, trendy, sort of things we've seen over the years, and is very prominent nowadays, is the online testimonials and the review websites. So, like your Trustpilot, even Google, reviews, how many stars you have, they can all play an important part in, a prospective customer, deciding whether to further get in touch and discover what you do, or whether to just not, take you on at all. So the kind of Trustpilot, the credibility, the validation of what you're doing, that authority, as Phil mentioned, is very important. But likewise, customer testimonials is a very, very powerful way of, again, that validation when people are looking to use your services or buy your product. And I think this is now Phil going into the future proofing. I'll let him run on this one.
Yeah, thank you. So any of us in business at whatever scale, whatever position, are very aware that the businesses move on, the markets move on, and you've got to be looking towards the future. Future proofing means also looking at being able to create the right message and the right product and service offering for the decision makers of the future. Already we've got a whole range of new generations that are queuing up, with Generation Zs and Generation Ys. As a baby boomer, I won't say much more about my own age group, but essentially, wherever you are in the generational span, you've got to be looking to the future, and that does point towards a different look at service offering, product development, and also service capability, and that includes back office understanding, because whilst technology can dictate a more efficient process, it's got to follow through. So, for example, in some research that American Express and Forrester Consulting did on digital, decisive and drone ready in those generation sectors, that poorly designed mobile features came up as something that was an irritant, and in fact potentially a block to purchase. You know, slow responses during chat messengers, contact forms that just bury emails and never get responded to, responsiveness on social media. How many times have we seen websites or indeed social media sites that just don't get kept up or are topical? You may as well not have it, because it actually just shows a kind of vacant or absentee landlord. We're going to be seeing future ability to look at delivery by drones, the ability to purchase through watches, other wearable devices, and bots and AI. These are things that need to be considered and looked at, flexible delivery and service offerings as you go forward, and that has to be built into the marketing program. So a couple of case studies if we've got a bit of time. So just quickly to say that the top line there is an example of an international brand that we work with, and they themselves have got a very busy event schedule, which is continually prioritized, parceled out amongst the BD and sales teams. We integrate with targeted campaigns, so social media, PR, interviews, editorial and blog, and even mobile video and commentary from events by the BD teams and other authorities, all build up to help them in terms of their relationship with integrators. They're kind of midway in the supply chain, looking at prime and other contracts. So that's something, an area that we very much see as a joined up approach. Another one would be, for example, a UAV OEM manufacturer. They only had 2 or 3 years to as a window before other technologies were going to catch up with them. They were about part of 3 or 4 players in the market, and now there are something arguably about 15 to 40, probably about 12 in their weight class, which also has dual use for commercial, security and also defense applications. What we're seeing with these case studies is an example of, we can amplify this with further requests for more information on case studies and capabilities. But essentially, more and more people are looking at this as a joined up opportunity to look at messaging and how they get across in a crowded market or an increasingly crowded market, even if they're in early adopter land.
So just as a summary, some key points we want to reinforce is that if you don't have one, is to create a marketing plan, but make sure that it's linked with your sales and BD activity, and that those teams are working together, and that you do then review the plans, the sales and the marketing plans together every quarter, at least. The second point would be to make sure that you're staying on top of the various factors that would affect your marketing activities, and that you are planning to give you that structure, and that you're not just blindly dealing with things and reacting, but trying to stay on the front foot as much as possible. Making sure that you've got that value proposition, understanding where you fit in the market, what makes you unique and therefore valuable to your current or prospective clients, and making sure therefore that your messaging and the personality of the business and its people as thought leaders are really cutting through the noise to the market. And finally, as we've said, that we can't emphasize enough that you don't need to go and spend money on what you think is necessary for marketing to achieve leads and opportunities and conversions to business. You can achieve so much through social media alone, never mind being kind of disruptive and kind of doing guerrilla marketing or various other free and low cost methods. So don't feel pressured when you get these emails asking you to sponsor or to pay for an article or anything else. There's lots of other and better ways to make sure that you're achieving what your business goals are through your marketing and PR activities. But yeah, ultimately, as Phil said, if you want any more details on the case studies, their issues, how we've been helping their challenges and helping to overcome them, any questions or queries that we maybe don't get to today, but please get in touch with Phil, and keep an eye out for the Drone Professional book in the next month or two. We've got a chapter in there, some of which is a sneak peek that you've had today, but otherwise, some more tips and tricks in there as well. But yeah, I'll hand over to Elena now for questions.
That was great, and it's given me a lot to think about as well. I don't know about anybody else. So we have time for questions and answers. If you want to pop them into the Q&A section across the bottom of the screen, that's great. But I also have some from others who have been unable to attend today but wanted to ask some advice. The first one of which is, we're a startup and need to gain additional funding. How would PR and social media support us?
Okay, I can take that, I think, because I referred earlier on with Traction's statistics about funders, with 225 in the UK up to the half year seeking funding, all of which, whether they're early adopters, whether they're new startups or they're more developed, mature in the market, they all rely on actually having some sort of credibility, and that includes right from the get-go having clarity in terms of its message, having a website that actually explains things, having some news items, or at least talking about the principals who are behind the organization, having a clear understanding of those business objectives which translate into marketing objectives, and therefore social media, web presence and messaging can actually help reach those independent advisors who might be seeking funders, whether they're institutional, private investors, or indeed more formal stock. So yes, definitely marketing PR has a central and pivotal role to help in looking at that process.
Okay, that's great. That's really useful. In terms of trying to keep up with social media platforms, with or without Twitter at the moment, it seems to be a time-consuming exercise, let alone providing content. What should our priorities be?
I'll
I think
go
that
for
one
that
probably
one,
applies to me as well, on behalf of ARPAS-UK.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be on board with social media. You really can't avoid it, and I know that some people don't like to do it. They don't want to put themselves out there. They just want to sort of monitor and kind of delve in and out when they feel comfortable. But if you have somebody who's willing to take on that mantle, again, maybe time constrained, we find that diarising time in your week to post content, to jump on social media and have a look, that can be one way of making sure that you don't forget to do it, basically. The other way is to subcontract that. In all honesty, if you don't have the time or the resource to do it, but you know that it's a necessity for your business, you can sort of subcontract that service where people will kind of be admins of your company's social media accounts. They'll be able to post, generate the content, follow up on leads, and tie that into your events, and again, depending on what you want to do, build that thought leadership into your social media. But ultimately, LinkedIn is a kind of de facto option. Twitter, as we say, is a bit maybe dodgy at the moment, but unless you're probably a very visual business, drone photography, then we probably avoid Instagram. and TikTok. But again, you know, if you want to have a bit of personality and a bit of disruption in your campaigns, to stand out, you know, doing a TikTok video, doing a viral video, even putting it on LinkedIn, the power of the network is unbelievable. That's what I've learned over the years, is really just making those connections, speaking to people in person, online as much as you can, has led to so much. So I would, definitely make the effort and the time if you don't have it.
I would agree, definitely, with regards to LinkedIn. It's what I use the most personally as well. We're members of ARPAS-UK, and they mainly work on the lobbying front with regards to government committees and regulators, etc. Could we leverage work that ARPAS-UK is doing on our behalf, especially in our interest area?
Well, I'm going to pop in there and then leave it to you, Elena, because you guys have got your finger on the pulse. Future flights, tenders from government, the Department of Transport, BAYS, Campaign, Connected Places Catapult, a whole range of funding and other tender opportunities we see. We actually refer that to our clients. And do you want to just tell more about the process? Because it does, it's part and parcel of what we're talking about. You need to network with people, and trade organisations and membership organisations are a good way of doing that. And discounts for events, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. So we are always very happy to share your success stories with the wider industry and help share those good news, those drones for good stories, that ability to, particularly at the moment, to share those cost savings, the cost efficiencies that come with it all, but also in particular as well the savings in terms of sort of HSE side of things.
That's what, just to chuck in there as well, that the kind of trade pavilions, that a lot of these government bodies and agencies have available for businesses to go abroad to exhibit. You can get free or very cheap stand space, booth space at events, and then you have the added kind of credibility from being kind of part of whether it's Team UK, Team USA, whichever organisations there. That's another great way. So keep your eye out on any opportunities where they're looking for businesses to kind of promote to the world if you're looking outside of the UK.
So absolutely on that one, we've had companies over from Australia earlier this autumn, where we got together with them and helped promote the UK businesses to them, and vice versa. It was a great opportunity to share knowledge, collaboration, that side of things, but as well as building on commercial opportunities too. So yes, we share success stories, very happy to do that. We encourage people to get involved if they have particular skill sets, again, to share with their best practices for their particular element via CPD sessions here. We are very happy for, in particular, news stories that we share, for you to reshare them as well, which is a great way of showing that you're connected in with a trade association that supports you, supports the industry, and goes that bit further. It shows that you're staying on top of current knowledge, you're staying up to date, and this again all builds on the leadership and the thought leadership side of things that both Phil and Jamie were mentioning earlier. These are all really good ways of doing so. There are numerous opportunities that come through as being part of ARPAS-UK, whether that is sort of international trade opportunities, but we'll keep you up to date with speaking opportunities for various trade shows around the UK. Again, as mentioned, very good places to get your message out and about, but also equally, as your company develops, a great way of encouraging a younger member of staff to get going on their stage as well. On that stage of the life for them. So speaking opportunities, there are exhibition opportunities, a number of which come with discounts as well. So don't feel too daunted about getting going on these. And to start with, go along to the trade shows anyway. Go and find out what's going on, find out what people enjoy, what people don't like, see what's out there. Go and listen to some of the other presentations that are happening, see if that chimes in with what you're thinking already. Maybe it's not, maybe it's going to completely disrupt what you think, but that's also a good thing too, because that's putting you in control of what's happening next in terms of your own thoughts, because you're shaping where your company is going to go and how it goes. And maybe then you write an article about it, share it on LinkedIn, see what other people think. Maybe it strikes a chord with them too. So these are all really good ways of doing this. I would absolutely advocate staying up to date with your websites. On top of that, when I talk to members, I do absolutely come across people who have pretty much got a static page and have not shared whatever they've been up to, really. And it keeps it bright, it keeps it active. If you go through and visit a company, you're trying to find a service for whatever it might be somebody coming in for an inspection, it might be that they want to buy the latest eVTOL in theory in the future. If their content on the website is 4 years old, how do they know you're still operating as a company? It could just still be a holding point. They need to know that you're still there and that you're still credible. So absolutely stay with that. I am going to come back to the last question I've got through here at the moment, which is, I'm sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on time as well, is we need to access and influence OEMs and integrators for our systems. How would you suggest we develop our marketing?
Yes, I had a bit of a coughing fit then. So basically, if you're looking at the supply chain, OEMs going through to integrators will be looking at a whole range of partners. We mentioned competition earlier on, and that means that sometimes you'll be competitors, sometimes you'll be collaborator with those in your marketplace. I think the most important thing is to ensure that your share of voice is maintained and that you have clear understanding of what's going on in your market, that you can even future-proof. So, for example, if you're into a propulsion technology, perhaps you can even have conversations and talk about hybrid, EV, potential for hydrogen, show that you're actually looking forward future into market opportunities. That itself can engender interesting conversations with those OEMs and integrators and prime contractors who want to see companies that are thinking on their feet, looking and developing opportunities. So again, it's making sure authority, industry spokesmanship, leading rather than following are all ways of actually and social media are helping in that as well. Help to actually be part of that sort of mix that puts you forefront in that supply chain.
I think that was an excellent way of answering that question. Thank you. I think we've just gone over the 1:30 normal cutoff point. So I've got a couple more questions here, but what we'll do is we'll come back and answer those directly to people. So thank you very much to Jamie and to Philip. And I know that we can get in touch. It was phil@pravoconsulting.com, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. We can put up the last page, I think, again, perhaps.
Yeah, it would be great.
Okay. I'm not used to Zoom,
Okay.
as you might be able to tell. There we go.
There we are. phil@pravoconsulting.com. There we go.
And we're on the web. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. If you punch in Pravo Consulting or Campaign Catapult, you'll be able to find us. Also our names, Philip Hicks and Jamie Allan are on LinkedIn as personal profiles as well. So we are searchable.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much indeed to everyone who's come along, and to Jamie and Phil as well for today's session. It will be posted again on the website later on this afternoon, so that those who are unfortunately unable to attend can watch again later in their own sweet time. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next one. Keep an eye on the website for details of forthcoming CPD sessions. Okay, and if you would like anyone to talk about membership as well, I'm always available. Do please contact me at membership@arpas.uk. Thanks very much then, and see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lena. Bye.